My name is Paulina. Some people know me as Pauline. I'm originally from Poland and I moved to Ireland at 15 years old. I'm 30 now. And some people might be stressed by public speaking or holding a microphone. I was born with a microphone in my hand. I was on a stage performing since I was 4 years old, singing, dancing, acting. Later on, reciting competitions. I was in a journalistic circle in school, different competitions like that, speaking competitions, debates. I was a class president, I organized events. And then my parents decided to move to Ireland. I was 15 and a half and I have been studying English language since I was around 7 or 8. But as you can imagine, it was maybe classes 2-3 times a week. Now, my vocabulary in Polish was very sophisticated. I used to take part in many different competitions, writing, speaking. Polish language was my favorite subject. So then being thrown from that environment to a totally different country with a totally different language, I was very excited at the very beginning, but then I became heartbroken. I was not the same person. I lost a part of me at just 15 years old, you know. Speaking, public speaking, competitions, acting, that was not a choice for me anymore. My dream of becoming a journalist, a presenter, that also, you know, didn't seem as an option. And it became very difficult for me in school to communicate what I truly wanted to communicate, to speak in a more sophisticated way, to be a presenter on a stage that feels extremely comfortable. I felt like part of my identity was gone. Now, thankfully, I think I've gotten to the place now when I can speak comfortably in English and in other languages, as a matter of fact, as well. But I wanted to do my presentation today about speaking in a foreign language and the anxieties that people experience when they speak in a second, third, fourth language, and the importance of support and understanding and education, not just for public speaking, but for everyday interactions. So first of all, for people who don't speak in English as their first mother tongue, or for people who, I don't know, want to do a presentation in German and Spanish, there's always this fear of screwing up and looking stupid and looking incompetent. When I was younger, I remember that I always wanted to answer my teachers in geography or biology, and I knew the subject. But I was so terrified to raise my hand and give them an answer in English. I felt that I will be misunderstood, or my choice of words would be very limited. And again, I come from the background of using language pretty comfortably, being on a stage. And I was afraid of judgment. And I can tell you there were a few times when I did try it and my classmates used to laugh at my accent or choice of words. And I think we need to understand for all of us, not just for teachers or presenters, but also if you have foreign employees, that it is much harder for us to communicate, to say what's on our mind. But it is all about changing your attitude, and I understood that a few years into my journey. We all have something to say, like Cora said. Even if you're afraid, we always have something to say, so we can't miss on that opportunity. And this is what I realized as well. You already speak in a second or third or fourth language. You're not stupid. You're not incompetent. You're amazing. You are speaking in another language. There's a lot of people who don't. So I realized that a bit late as well. And it doesn't need to be perfect. It's perfectly okay to make mistakes. Even in professional environment, I speak a lot at different professional events in my industry all around the world. And often when there is a video or recording, I watch myself and I see a mistake here or there. But it does not show incompetence. It just shows the nature. It is my second language. I am not a native English speaker. the understanding is needed, particularly from people who are listeners or employers or managers. So some of the key issues for foreign speakers when they speak in a foreign language is not just public speaking. Now, taking phone conversations, phone interviews, or even in a working environment, phoning clients, taking notes down, it is extremely difficult. When you actually talk to a person face to face, it's much easier. You see their lips and the movement and you can connect. When you speak to someone over the phone, is extremely, extremely difficult to understand. And a lot of people speaking in a second language experience that anxiety when they have to do a phone call. Voicing your opinions at school or at work. There might be something that you want to say or something that you want to add to a conversation, or you're participating in an event and you're just afraid to voice that opinion. So an understanding again is needed, but also facilities. If you have a lot of international workers, maybe set up, I don't know, a hidden box, or give them a chance to voice their opinions via email. It is actually proven that learning to write comes much easier to people than learning to speak. So maybe they will find it much more easy to voice their opinion on the sheet of paper or in the email. And I had that difficulty as well. I loved participating in discussions with people and giving my opinion now, but a few years ago, that absolutely broke my heart. Another thing for foreign workers is giving presentations or pitches and projects, even in front of a very small group of people. You might have a fantastic presentation and you feel so great about it, and then there comes a moment of silence. Can someone else present for me, please? Again, it's that fear of being stupid, of feeling stupid, of making mistakes, of appearing incompetent. So again, you might think it's another day in the office. You might not think twice about how anxious and stressed people are about doing these presentations, pitches. Making announcements, public announcements. Again, still after 15 years in living in Ireland and working and studying in English subject or English language, I was running an event at Tala Stadium for American football, and I had to make an announcement via the main mic for 2,000 people. And I don't know why, I felt nervous that people are going to laugh at my accent, or they might not understand where they're supposed to go for food. Yeah, this is also very difficult, making announcements, public announcements. And then building friendships. Like Flash said, it's important now. People don't make friendships now so easily. They're shy. Well, imagine how foreigners feel, or you might feel when you go to another country. It's all about the communication. It's all about speaking and understanding. But this is also one of the solutions, because it was actually my friends in school or my first Irish boyfriend that helped me, that taught me. So speaking to someone, giving them the time that they can speak to you and practice. I learned so much more from people that I was talking to than from any English grammar teacher, any English book I could ever have learned from. There's certain phrases that I know when my first Irish friends taught me. I know exactly when it was, what I'm using. But it is difficult. It is difficult to build a friendship when you can't communicate properly. But yeah, just take a chance on someone if you can. And then asking for help or complaining. Now, some of the employers here might be delighted with that, but yeah, it became very difficult. And I had an issue at my school when I was a secondary student in Ireland. Something happened to me. I was treated badly by one of the teachers, and my mom had to go and complain. And I remember, even though her English is very good and she's a medical professional, she felt so stressed to go to the principal and make a complaint and fight for me. This is actually this point I always suggest, because I remember from her experience. Complaining or asking for help in a school or work environment, it becomes extremely stressful. Again, when you're complaining to a native person, you always feel like they might overpower your conversation. They will use better words, they will use better argument. So you almost feel like you're in a lost position. And we need to come from a place of understanding and facilitate that, so that the people can complain, that they can ask for help, and that they don't feel intimidated by the other side, that the other side can overpower them with their language, with their choice of words, with their argument. Because I remember myself and my mom, we always felt like if it came to it, we're going to lose the argument. Of course, my school and my principal, they were extremely good and they facilitated everything. But I've seen it time and time again. I work with a lot of international people, and it's always very hard for them to complain that something wasn't right or something wasn't done right. And they complain much less than a native person or a person from UK when we go for different events. And when they complain in English, we always send one person there to complain on behalf. But yeah, that is extremely difficult for people. What I would like you to take away from this is that it's not only about public speaking and holding the mic. People have difficulty speaking in another language in everyday life. In all of their interactions. But of course, when you do want to become a public speaker, you have to get used to that little baby, a microphone. And as I said, I absolutely love the microphone. I just feel like I've been holding it since I was 5 years old, so it became my best friend. But for people who have a fear of speaking, I always suggest exercises and holding it, and rather than having, the mic like that, because you feel disconnected, practicing in front of a mirror, looking at yourself, recording yourself, listening to yourself, correcting mistakes, that always works for me. And of course, for people who have been performing or speaking, we're all familiar with the stage fright, and the lights are so bright. And when you have to take that spot in the middle of the spotlight, it can be intimidating. Now, in native language and in foreign language, it doesn't matter. We're just human beings. And of course, these days, we risk another kind of anxiety. Everybody has a phone. Everybody can record you now. So people are very, very conscious, at least before 20 years ago. If you were on the stage and you made a mistake or something didn't go right, or you said something you didn't want to say, there was no evidence of it, unless it was professionally recorded. But now anybody has a phone, and I think it creates a lot of anxiety for people. I don't mind personally, but I know that a lot of people do. Now, preparation is key, obviously, for your presentations, for your speeches, but people are busy. People travel a lot. I certainly do. I was speaking at Richard's event Profs meetup in London, and I was doing my presentation on my phone, on Canva app, practicing last minute because it was just an extremely busy week. I've been practicing this speech on the train from Dublin today. So preparation is key, but improvisation. And again, what Cora said at the very, very beginning, when you speak about something that you know, something that you're passionate about, something that you're experienced already, I think a lot of our speakers today, that's exactly what they did. You're not going to be lost for words. You know exactly what to say, because at least if you did practice and you forgot, you've lived it. And there's no problem giving an example or sharing a thought or sharing an experience. And I studied journalism for a year as a part of my Erasmus exchange in Madrid. And these are just a few, very few to finish with, points that our teacher shared with us that I really, really like. Again, for public speaking, for conversations, for workshops such as this. Again, storytelling, and as far as I know, we have another amazing speaker after me about storytelling. So storytelling, again, it's an amazing technique. Rather than having a few points in your presentation, tell a story, that always works. What I said before, speak about your experiences, your passions, but also what you know. You're not going to forget what you know, your expertise, your experience. Do not memorize what you're supposed to say, and this is even a tip that we were given as a journalist students presenting live news. The best presenters were the people who just learned a few points, and they knew when they were arriving to present the news, they knew what was happening more or less, but they didn't memorize the delivery of the message. 95% of the news agents, when you see them, when you see the journalists presenting on a live story, they did not memorize that. They're going live. They're going live, and they're just saying sort of what's in the moment. Practice in front of the mirror, and this is the one that I really like, because you do want to see yourself, the way you move, your hand gesture. I was delivering a talk in Berlin last week, and we were all foreign speakers and people who were not living in an English-speaking country such as myself, and they had even more difficulties, and the hand gestures were flying everywhere. But it's just the way people do communicate. There is a lot of research suggesting that people speaking in a foreign language, they speak louder and they use more hand gesture because they feel more heard. And it's so true. I'm guilty of it. I don't use my gestures as much. In Poland, it's considered very bad manners when you speak. But I can't control it when I speak in English. I don't know. It's just, it helps me. Maybe it's the anxiety thing, but it helps me. Record yourself to hear your voice, but also to become familiar with your voice. What you know, it will not scare you. Points. I think, Cora, you said that, having a point to get across, and don't have more than 1 or 2 points per slide or per kind of time allocation slot. People can take 1 or 2 points. If you talk about more, and I used to be very guilty of that, I would overpower people with information. It doesn't work. So make a point, not more. Yeah. And one last thing, what helped me, it was very difficult, obviously, but I'm here, I'm speaking. I think I speak too much again, but I love this power that speech gives us. And I was mute for a while moving to Ireland, and I never want to feel like that ever again. So you might be familiar with that, but anything that we do in life, the iceberg illusion, people only see that little success, but they don't see the persistence, they don't see the failure, the disappointments, the habits that you had to develop, the hard work and the dedication, and so many people telling you that you can't do it. There's so many people who had that today that could talk about it. I also experienced that. Yeah. This is also at the Travel Massive Dublin. And one of the chapter leaders, check it out if anybody is involved in the travel, blogging, travel technology. And this is my business. I'm an entrepreneur as well. It's a platform with venues called Currency. These are my 2 friends. Adana, she's a doctor, she's from Nigeria, living in Dublin, and this is my colleague, marketing Priscilla, she's from Brazil, living in Dublin. We're all foreigner speakers, but we're doing it, and yeah, and next time you meet someone who speaks in a 2nd, 3rd, 4th language, I think just appreciate it. And if yourselves, you're learning another language, don't be scared, because you're already winning. Thank you very much.